Security. Everybody down. Hands where I can see them. The voice ripped through our home at 2:47 a.m., followed by the explosive crack of splintering wood as our mahogany front door imploded inward. The deadbolt tore clean out of the doorframe, screws spinning through the air like missiles. My wife Michelle screamed from upstairs. I stood frozen on the staircase in my pajamas, staring at a massive figure in a fake security uniform filling our doorway, wielding a maglite flashlight like a weapon. Behind him, through the destroyed entrance, I could see our quiet suburban street lit by street lamps. "Get on the ground now," he bellowed, his face flushed red with exertion and panic masked as aggression. "Ho! Night Patrol! This is a compliance check! You are in violation of community standards!" My brain struggled to process what was happening. The words were recognizable HOA, Night Patrol, compliance check, but delivered at 2:47 inches the morning by a man who'd just kicked in my door, they formed absolute insanity. It was like normal words rearranged into a nightmare. Compliance check? I croaked out, my throat dry as sandpaper. "You just kicked in my door. You can't just break into someone's house." "I said get down." The man roared, his voice climbing into a shriek. He raised the flashlight higher, gripping it like a weapon with both hands. He was younger than I'd first thought, late 20s, with a weak chin, small darting eyes, and visible sweat on his forehead. "This is your final warning. Get on the ground, or I will physically make you comply." He took another menacing step forward. From the darkness at the top of the landing, a voice cut through the chaos with surgical precision, calm, quiet, carrying the kind of lethal certainty that comes from a decade of combat experience. "Drop the light. Hands up. Do it now." My son Derek stood there in gym shorts and his Army Ranger t-shirt. His eyes were fully awake, calculating distances and threat levels with automatic tactical assessment. In his hands, held in perfect two-handed grip, was his service pistol, a Sig Sauer P-320. The barrel pointed at a safe downward angle, but the message was crystal clear. The intruder's flashlight beam swung wildly toward Derek, trembling visibly. His breathing changed from aggressive panting to frightened hyperventilation in seconds. I'm HOA security, man," he stammered, his voice losing all its command bluster. "I have authority to conduct inspections. This is legal. Put that gun down or I'll have you arrested. You have 3 seconds to put your hands above your head before I put 2 rounds in that floor next to your feet," Derek said, his voice never rising above conversation level. "Your choice." 3. The intruder took a half-step backward, boots crunching on door debris, but his hand still gripped the flashlight like a weapon. He was calculating now, trying to decide if this was a bluff, if his fake authority could win against real military training. 2. Derek descended 1 step, his bare feet silent, his movement perfectly controlled, his aim never wavering from center mass. "Man, listen. You don't understand. I'm just doing my job." The intruder's voice was rising, getting more desperate. "If you shoot me, you're going to jail." 1. Bang. The first shot was like a thunderclap in the enclosed space, so explosively loud it punched through my chest. My ears started ringing. The muzzle flash lit up the stairwell in brilliant white light. A geyser of splinters erupted from the hardwood floor about 6 inches to the right of the intruder's boot. The smell of cordite was suddenly thick in the air. Bang. The second shot came exactly half a second later. Another explosion of wood chips on the left side, the 2 bullet holes forming perfect brackets around his feet. Not warning shots fired wild, these were deliberate placement shots. The intruder's scream was high-pitched and terrified, nothing like his aggressive bark from 30 seconds ago. It was the sound of someone who'd realized they'd made a catastrophic mistake. His flashlight clattered to the floor, rolling and spinning. His hand shot straight up above his head, fingers trembling violently. "Okay! Don't shoot! Please! Don't shoot!" He was crying now, actual tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean don't kill me. I have a kid. I'm sorry." All the machismo had vanished, revealing what had always been underneath, a scared, stupid man in over his head. Derek descended the rest of the stairs with controlled precision, his pistol now aimed directly at the intruder's center mass. When he spoke again, his voice was even lower. "You will stand down. You will keep your hands above your head where I can see them. You will not move unless I tell you to move. You will not speak unless I ask you a direct question. Do you understand these instructions?" "Yes," the intruder squeaked out, nodding frantically. "Yes, sir. I understand. I won't move. I'll do whatever you say." "What's your name?" Derek asked. Travis. Travis Whitmore. I'm just doing what I was told to do, man. I swear to God I didn't mean any harm." "Who told you to kick in this door, Travis?" Travis's eyes darted toward the open doorway, toward the dark sedan parked at the curb. Derek saw the look immediately. "Don't even think about it," Derek said quietly. "You run, and I will put a round through your left calf muscle before you make it 3 steps. You will not leave until the police arrive." "Nod once if you understand." Travis nodded frantically, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. From behind me on the stairs, Michelle appeared with her iPhone held up horizontally in video mode, the little red recording light glowing. "Got every second," she whispered, her voice steady despite everything. From the door kick to the shots to his confession, all of it, crystal clear audio, his face is in frame. "This is admissible." I looked at the sobbing man in our destroyed entryway, at my son holding him at gunpoint, at the police sirens already wailing in the distance. This wasn't just a home invasion by an idiot in a fake uniform. This was the opening shot in a war that Patricia Delgado had brought to our doorstep. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back 12 hours, to where this nightmare really started. My name is Raymond Torres, 61 years old, retired union electrician with 38 years at Local 11 of the IBEW. I've wired hospitals, high-rises, entire housing developments across Southern California. My wife Michelle and I moved to Desert Vista Estates in Riverside County in June 2016, right after I turned 57. We found a beautiful 3-bedroom house with a decent backyard. The neighborhood had palm trees, sidewalks, a community pool. It was paradise. For a while. Our son Derek had just finished his 2nd deployment to Afghanistan when we bought the house. He was career Army, a staff sergeant with the 75th Ranger Regiment. If you don't know what that means, it means he's one of the best trained combat soldiers in the world. Rangers are the guys who get sent in first when things are really bad. Derek joined right out of high school in 2007, survived Ranger School, and had been to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan twice. He didn't talk about it much. He was stationed at Fort Bragg, but kept his room here, his home base, his sanctuary. For the first few years after we moved to Desert Vista Estates, it was exactly what we'd hoped for. We knew our neighbors. Carl Brennan across the street was a Vietnam vet, Marine Corps, who kept his lawn perfect and flew an American flag. Sophia Martinez was a single mom working 2 jobs 3 houses down with her 2 kids. We'd have neighborhood barbecues. Kids would run around while adults talked and laughed. The HOA back then was run by Bob Kimura, a retired schoolteacher who was soft-spoken and reasonable. Bob's philosophy: keep the pool clean, lights working, and leave people alone. Then Bob moved to Oregon in July 2023, and Patricia Delgado ran for HOA president. The election happened in August during the hottest week of summer when temperatures hit 108 degrees and most people were on vacation. The election notice was sent out exactly 1 week before the vote. Only 43 people showed up out of 287 houses. Patricia won with 24 votes. 24. Less than 10% of the community elected her. At first, changes were subtle. New signs appeared. Notices started arriving about updated bylaws, trash can placement, paint colors, fence heights. Annoying but not worth fighting about. Then came the fines. Carl Brennan got hit with a $150 fine because his mailbox post was displaying weathered wood inconsistent with community standards. Carl had lived there 12 years. His mailbox was weathered because it was 12 years old in the desert. Sofia Martinez got fined $200 because her kids left a basketball hoop in the driveway overnight, 3 times. That was $600 in fines for a basketball hoop. She was working as a dental hygienist during the day and doing medical billing at night, trying to raise 2 kids alone. She couldn't afford $600 for a toy. I got my first notice in March 2024. It stated that my front yard xeriscaping the cactus and succulent garden I'd spent 3 years cultivating contained unapproved decorative elements not consistent with community aesthetic standards. What unapproved element? A small Buddha statue, about 8 inches tall, that Michelle had placed among the barrel cacti because she thought it looked peaceful. That was my crime. A Buddha statue. The letter gave me 30 days to remove it or face a $500 fine. I ignored it. The Buddha stayed. I'm not Buddhist, but I liked it. Michelle liked it. The second notice came in April with a doubled fine, $1,000. It threatened a lien on our property if I didn't comply within 15 days. That's when I stopped treating this as an annoyance and started treating it as a threat. That's when I started asking questions and pulling documents and doing research. And that's when I learned I wasn't alone. It was October 8th, 2024, the day after Michelle's birthday, when Carl Brennan knocked on our door. He was holding a folder stuffed with papers, his weathered hands shaking. "Raymond, we need to talk. All of us. That woman is running a scam, and I can prove it." We held the meeting in our backyard that Saturday afternoon, October 12th. 12 neighbors showed up, each bringing their own folder of notices, fines, and threatening letters. As we laid everything out on our patio table, spreading documents like evidence at a crime scene, a pattern emerged that made my blood run cold. Patricia Delgado wasn't just being a petty tyrant drunk on tiny power. She was running an organized criminal enterprise, a shakedown operation, a protection racket disguised as neighborhood governance. And she was getting away with it because it looked legitimate. Sofia Martinez went first. She'd done her research, and what she'd found was damning. 3 months ago, Patricia created the Desert Vista Night Patrol. She sent out a newsletter saying it was for our protection, retired security professionals volunteering to keep us safe from rising crime. Sofia pulled out printed documents. But the professional security company supposedly advising the patrol is called Riverside Tactical Services. I looked it up in the California Business Registry. It's not a company, it's a P.O. box at a UPS store, registered to Patricia's nephew, Travis Whitmore. She pulled up Travis's booking photo on her iPhone and passed it around. He was a lumpy guy in his late 20s, with thinning brown hair, a weak chin that melted into his neck, and small, aggressive eyes. "He's got priors," Sofia continued. "Check fraud in 2019, assault in 2021, trespassing in 2022. This isn't a security professional, this is a professional screw-up who can't hold a real job." Michelle was already on her laptop, pulling up the California Secretary of State's business registry. There's more. Patricia registered an LLC last year, January 2023, 2 months before she even ran for president. It's called Desert Property Holdings, LLC. 3 houses in this neighborhood in the past 6 months, Michelle confirmed, clicking through county property records. All bought at 20 to 30% below market value, all from families being harassed with fines. The Johnsons on Cactus Drive, remember them? Bought their house in 2019 for $385,000. They sold in April this year for $310,000, $75,000 below market. Want to know who bought it? Desert Property Holdings, LLC. They sold right after Patricia's night patrol started leaving notices on their car every single night for 2 weeks. Parking violations, even though the car was in their own driveway. The pattern was clear and sickening as Michelle pulled up record after record. Patricia would target a family with escalating fines, finding violations where none existed, ridiculous things like garden hoses being the wrong color or mailboxes an 1/8 inch too tall. Her nephew's fake patrol would intimidate them with late-night compliance checks, knocking on doors at midnight, leaving notices at 2 a.m., shining flashlights into windows. Nothing technically violent or illegal by itself, just relentless psychological pressure designed to make people feel unsafe in their own homes. Eventually, families would crack, desperate to escape the constant harassment and mounting fines. That's when Patricia's LLC would swoop in with a lowball cash offer, usually delivered through a real estate agent, so Patricia's name never appeared directly. The desperate families would take it just to get away. Desert Property Holdings would buy the house for $60,000 or $80,000 below market value. Patricia would pay Travis to do quick cosmetic work, then flip it 3 months later for massive profit. It was textbook predatory real estate fraud, and she was hiding it behind the legitimate authority of an HOA. "We need to go to the police," Sophia said, her voice tight with anger. "This is extortion and fraud." "With what?" Carl asked, gesturing at our pile of papers. "Notices and fines?" "She'll say she's just enforcing bylaws, which she technically has authority to do." "Sure. It's bullshit and selective, but that's a civil HOA dispute, not a crime. We need proof she's directing harassment, specifically to pressure people to sell so her company can buy cheap. We need her on record saying that. We need to catch her red-handed." That's when Derek spoke up. He'd been silent through the whole meeting, sitting on our back porch, step-in cargo shorts and a t-shirt, just listening, processing, analyzing. Now he stood up and walked over to the table, looking down at our spread of evidence. "You need to make her think she's winning," he said simply. "Then you need to get her confession on tape." Everyone turned to look at him. In interrogations, when we needed information, the most effective technique was never aggression. It was making the subject feel safe and superior. You make them think they've won, that you're defeated. Their ego takes over. They start talking. Michelle was nodding slowly, her paralegal brain already working through legal angles. Make her think we're scared and ready to sell. Get her to admit on tape that the harassment is deliberate, that it's connected to the property sales, that she controls the night patrol. "Exactly," Derek said. "The enemy always talks when they think they've won. You get your proof, document everything, then you take her down." I looked around the table at my neighbors, Carl, Sophia, the others, all victims of Patricia's schemes, all waiting for someone to take the lead. We had to be the ones to make the first move. I started the bait-and-switch operation the very next day, Sunday, October 13th. Patricia held office hours every Monday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. at the community center. I showed up at 9:15 a.m., deliberately early, but not so early. I'd be first. I wanted other people around to see me looking defeated and willing to comply. Patricia was sitting at a folding table near the window, laptop open, wearing a crisp blazer and pearl necklace like she was running a real estate empire. She was in her mid-52s, rail-thin, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like someone who'd watched too many business videos. "Patricia," I said, approaching with what I hoped looked like genuine defeat, shoulders slumped, head down, voice quiet. I'd practiced this in the mirror. "Can we talk? About the fines? About the Buddha statue?" Her eyes lit up with predatory satisfaction, like a cat that had cornered a mouse. This was what she lived, for the moment of submission, the acknowledgement of her power. "Raymond, please, sit down." She gestured to the folding chair across from her, closing her laptop to give me her full attention. This was important to her. This was victory. I sat down heavily, running my hand through my hair in exhausted frustration. Then I fed her the story we'd carefully planned. "Michelle and I were tired. We're just tired of all this. The fines, the threats about the lien, the night patrol knocking on our door at midnight about our trash cans. We just want peace. We're thinking about selling, moving somewhere quieter, less regulated. Maybe up to Oregon where people just leave you alone." "I'm sorry to hear that," Patricia said, and she wasn't sorry at all. Her voice had the syrupy false sympathy of someone who'd won and was enjoying it. "But you know, Raymond, sometimes a community just isn't the right fit for everyone. Some people just don't understand the value of maintaining standards. I know, I said, playing my part. I get it now. I need the process to be fast. I need to sell quickly, without more hassles. And I need you to call off the night patrol. No more notices, no more midnight knocks while we're trying to sell. It'll kill our listing value if buyers see that. Can you help me with that? She leaned back, studying me with calculating eyes, deciding whether I was sincere or if this was a trap. After a long moment, she seemed to decide I was genuine. You know, she said carefully, leaning forward and lowering her voice like she was sharing a confidence. I might be able to help you. I know some real estate investors, very discreet people, very professional. They specialize in quick cash deals in HOA communities. No inspection hassles, no financing contingencies, close in 2 weeks. They're always looking for motivated sellers. That sounds perfect, I said, allowing relief into my voice. What's the name of the company? I'll look them up. Desert Property Holdings, she said without hesitation, and I felt my heart rate spike, even though I kept my expression neutral. She'd just volunteered the connection. She was more arrogant than I'd thought. I'm a silent partner in the company, so I can't officially represent them, but I can make the introduction. They're very fair with their offers. That would be amazing, I said. And the night patrol? The harassment? She glanced toward the door to make sure no one was close enough to overhear, then she leaned forward even more. Here's where she made her fatal, irreversible mistake. The patrol works for me, she said quietly, a small smile playing at her mouth. Travis, my nephew, he's very good at his job. He understands how to create pressure, how to maintain standards, how to make sure people who don't fit the community vision tend to self-select out, if you know what I mean. It's more efficient than going through lengthy bylaw dispute processes. I had a digital audio recorder in my shirt pocket, sewn into the fabric by Michelle that morning, disguised as a button. It was voice-activated, professional grade. I was capturing every word Patricia said. So, if I sell to your investors, I said carefully, the patrol pressure stops? Completely, she said, her smile widening. She pulled a business card from her purse and slid it across the table. Call this number. Ask for James Restrepo. He's the agent Desert Property Holdings uses. Tell him I referred you. He'll come out this week, give you a cash offer, and we can have you out of here and on your way to Oregon in 2 weeks. Problem solved. Then, because she couldn't resist, because her ego demanded she demonstrate just how thoroughly she controlled everything, she added the information that would destroy her. But here's the thing. Raymond, the patrol schedule for the next 2 weeks is already set. We're focusing on several non-compliant properties that need additional pressure. The Brennan house, for example, Carl's mailbox situation, still isn't resolved, and he's being stubborn, and that Martinez woman with the screaming kids who keeps leaving toys everywhere, they're getting increased attention until they comply or make other arrangements. She actually said it. She named Carl Brennan and Sophia Martinez as her next targets. She laid out the entire scheme harassment designed to force sales, her nephew controlling the patrol, specific families being targeted. I really appreciate this, Patricia, I said, standing up and taking the business card, my hands steady even though my heart was pounding. You've been very helpful. Very honest. We take care of our own here at Desert Vista, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The ones who understand how things work, anyway. I walked out of that community center with my heart pounding against my ribs and Patricia Delgado's full confession in my shirt pocket. We had motive. We had targets. We had her admitting the patrol was hers to control. We had her connecting harassment to property sales. We had everything. What we needed now was to catch her in the act. We needed her to make a move that crossed from civil HOA harassment into actual criminal behavior. We needed her to escalate, and we were confident she would. That night, Derek did a full security walkthrough of our house, moving through each room with professional efficiency, identifying entry points and vulnerabilities. Front door is the obvious entry point, he said, examining our door frame. Good deadbolt, but it's not reinforced. Someone could kick through this if they hit it hard enough. So we let them, Michelle said. Derek nodded. But we need documentation, cameras, audio. We spent Monday afternoon setting up our defensive perimeter. Michelle ordered 2 high-definition security cameras from Amazon with next-day delivery, one covering the front porch, one covering the interior of the foyer. Derek helped me install them. We also set up a dedicated recording device in the upstairs hallway, positioned to capture audio and video of the entire staircase and entryway. I called Carl and Sophia and explained the plan. They both wanted to set up similar systems. If she's targeting all of us, we should all be ready. We were ready. Now we just had to wait. Derek was home on a 3-week leave. He'd taken the time to visit us, to decompress from his 4th tour in Afghanistan. He needed time to remember what normal civilian life felt like. I told him on Sunday night that he could go stay with friends if he wanted, that this was our fight, and we didn't want to drag him into our mess. He'd looked at me like I'd just suggested he desert his post. Dad, I'm exactly where I need to be. You and Mom are my mission right now. This isn't your fight alone. Michelle had gotten emotional at that. Our son, who'd survived 4 combat deployments, who'd jumped out of airplanes behind enemy lines, who'd done things in service of his country that gave him nightmares, was choosing to stand guard over us in our suburban California home because some petty criminal with an HOA badge had threatened us, so we waited. And waiting was harder than I'd expected. Monday night came and went with nothing but normal sounds. I barely slept. Every sound made me alert. Derek slept like he always did, 4 hours of deep rest, then awake at 5 a.m. For his routine. I watched him from my bedroom window that first morning, watching him run down our street in pre-dawn darkness, his pace steady and mechanical. When he came back an hour later, he wasn't even breathing hard. He did 20 perfect pull-ups. Then showered and made breakfast like he hadn't just run 10 miles. You should try to rest, Dad, he told me over coffee. You're going to burn yourself out watching for them. They'll come when they come. The cameras will catch it. I'll handle it. But I couldn't rest. My mind wouldn't stop working through scenarios, possibilities, what-ifs. Tuesday was even worse. I found myself watching the street through our front window like a paranoid hermit, studying every car that drove by, every person who walked past. Was that one of Travis's friends doing reconnaissance? Was that car slowing down to look at our house? Was I losing my mind? Michelle noticed. She always noticed. Raymond, she said Tuesday afternoon, you need to eat something. You've had nothing but coffee all day. You're making yourself sick. What if they don't come? I asked her. What if Patricia figured out we're recording her? Then we go to the police with what we have, she said calmly. The recording of her admitting she controls the patrol, the property records showing her scheme. It's not perfect, but it's something. But Patricia isn't that smart, Raymond. She thinks she's untouchable. She'll make a move. She was right. I knew she was right. But the waiting was agony. Derek spent Tuesday doing what he called prep work. He cleared sight lines in our house, moving furniture slightly so there were no obstacles between the top of the stairs and the front door. He checked and rechecked his pistol in a ritual I'd seen him do 100 times. He walked through possible scenarios out loud, his voice calm and analytical. If they knock, we don't answer. Let them escalate. If they try to force entry, I take a defensive position at the top of the stairs, high ground, clear sight lines, warning first, then 2 warning shots into the floor if they don't stop. Aim is always center mass, never to wound. Castle doctrine applies in California. We have the right to defend our home with lethal force if we reasonably believe we're in danger. He said it all matter-of-factly, like he was reading from a manual. Because for him, that's exactly what it was. Tuesday night, still nothing. By Wednesday morning, I was exhausted, jittery from too much coffee and too little sleep. Derek made me eat a full breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, and ordered me to take a nap. You're no good to us if you collapse. I'll watch. I sleep light. If anything happens, I'll know. I tried to nap Wednesday afternoon. I managed maybe an hour of fitful sleep, full of dreams about doors breaking. We had dinner together that Wednesday night, spaghetti, Michelle's homemade sauce, garlic bread. We talked about normal things. Derek told us funny stories from Fort Bragg. At 10 p.m., Derek excused himself and went to his room. I'm going to get some sleep. Wake me if you need anything. Michelle and I stayed up watching TV, some mindless detective show neither of us was really paying attention to. At 11:30, she went up to bed. Are you coming? Soon, I lied. She knew I was lying. She kissed the top of my head and went upstairs. I sat there in the dark living room, the TV providing the only light, my mind unable to stop cycling through thoughts. I must have dozed off on the couch sometime around midnight. The next thing I knew, I was jerking awake, disoriented, my mouth dry. The TV had auto shut off. The house was dark. I checked my watch. 2:34 a.m. I needed water. I stood up, my knees creaking, and headed for the kitchen. That's when everything changed. That's when the waiting ended. That's when Patricia Delgado's arrogance finally overrode whatever caution she might have had. It was 2:47 a.m., and I was halfway to the kitchen when I heard the heavy footsteps on our porch. It was 2:47 a.m. On Wednesday, October 23rd, when our lives exploded into violence and our patience was rewarded with everything we needed to destroy Patricia's empire. I'd been awake insomnia, my mind unable to stop working through HOA schemes, and I'd come downstairs for water. The house was silent. Michelle was asleep upstairs. Derek was asleep in his room. That's when I heard it. Heavy footsteps on our porch. Multiple footsteps, at least 2 people, maybe 3. The jangle of metal, like equipment on a belt. Then a voice. This is Desert Vista Night Patrol. We have reports of code violations at this address. Open up for immediate inspection. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. It was 2:47 inches the morning. The cameras were recording. Everything was recording. This was it. My first instinct was to call 911 right then. That would have been smart. But I was angry enough to make a tactical mistake. I wanted to confront them, to tell whoever was out there that I knew exactly what they were doing, that we had evidence, that their game was over. I moved toward the door, intending to shout through it that they needed to leave, that I was calling the police. But before I could reach the door, before I could even open my mouth, the world exploded. The door didn't just open. It didn't just break. It imploded inward with violence I couldn't have imagined. Within 3 minutes, I could hear sirens. Within 4 minutes, they were on our street. The rest of that night was a blur of police cars, and questions and statements. Riverside County Sheriff's deputies swarmed our house, securing the scene, separating us for individual interviews. Sergeant Linda Vasquez was the lead deputy, and she was everything you'd want in a cop, smart, thorough, skeptical in a good way. She took in the scene with experienced eyes. Our destroyed door, Travis Whitmore in his fake uniform crying on our porch in handcuffs, Derek.com in his Army Ranger shirt. Michelle, with her phone showing video. Sir, Vasquez said to me, I need you to walk me through exactly what happened from the beginning. I did. I told her about the knocking, the fake announcement, the door being kicked in, Travis's threats, Derek's response. Michelle showed her the video, all of it captured in HD from multiple angles, complete with clear audio. Vasquez watched the video twice, her jaw tightening with each viewing. HOA security at 2:47 inches the morning, kicking in doors to conduct compliance checks. She turned to Travis, sitting on our porch, steps in handcuffs, still sniffling. You want to explain yourself, Mr. Whitmore? I was just doing my job, Travis whined. I'm part of the HOA Night Patrol. We have authority to inspect properties. Patricia said he caught himself, his eyes going wide as he realized what he'd just done. Patricia said, What? Vasquez asked sharply, and I could see her mind working, connecting pieces. Nothing, Travis said quickly. I want a lawyer. I'm not saying anything else, but the damage was done. He'd connected Patricia Delgado to the home invasion with those 2 words, Patricia said. Vasquez called for a supervisor and additional detectives. A detective named Marcus Chen arrived around 3:30 a.m. Older guy, maybe late 52nds, with gray at his temples and the tired, intelligent eyes of someone who'd seen every scam and con in the book. He listened to our story. He watched Michelle's video. He examined the destroyed door. He asked pointed, specific questions that told me he understood exactly what was really going on. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "This isn't the first complaint we've had about your HOA, is it?" He wasn't asking us. He was asking Vasquez. "Third one this month," Vasquez confirmed. "Until tonight," Detective Chen said, looking at our destroyed door. "Tonight we have felony home invasion, assault, criminal impersonation of a security officer, making terroristic threats, and—" He looked at me directly. "I'm guessing you folks have more." People don't set up security cameras and recording devices like this unless they're expecting something. You knew this was coming. I could have kissed him. A detective who actually understood how real-world intimidation and premeditated schemes worked. "We have recordings," I said, "and we have other victims. Carl Brennan across the street, Sophia Martinez 3 houses down, 6 other families." We spread it all out on our dining room table while the sun came up all the evidence we'd compiled. The fines and threatening letters from Patricia. The business registrations for Riverside Tactical Services and Desert Property Holdings, both connected to Patricia. The property sales record showing the pattern of harassment followed by below-market sales to her LLC. The audio recording of my conversation with Patricia where she admitted controlling the patrol and targeting specific families. Detective Chen and Sergeant Vasquez went through it methodically, taking photos, making detailed notes. "This is organized fraud," Chen said finally, sitting back in his chair, "using HOA authority as cover for extortion and predatory real estate acquisition. It's sophisticated enough that it's been flying under the radar as civil HOA disputes, but the home invasion tonight, that's the gift. That's the felony that gives us leverage to flip your boy Travis out there and get him to testify against Patricia Delgado." "Will he flip?" Michelle asked. "Oh, he'll flip," Vasquez said with absolute confidence. "The moment we explain he's looking at 10 years minimum for felony home invasion, he'll give up his own mother to cut a deal." She was right. By noon that same day, after Travis spent about 6 hours in a holding cell thinking about spending the next decade in Chino State Prison, he gave up everything. He confessed that Patricia had been paying him $500 cash per patrol night to harass targeted homeowners. Money never reported, never taxed. He had a list, a physical list, handwritten by Patricia on Desert Vista Estates letterhead of 14 addresses to apply pressure to. The list included our address, Carl's, Sophia's, and 11 others. He admitted that Riverside Tactical Services was entirely fake, just him and 2 unemployed friends playing dress-up, and most damning of all, he admitted that Patricia had specifically ordered him to escalate pressure on our house because I'd been asking too many questions and organizing resistance. The door kicking, the aggressive entry, the threats, that was Patricia's idea. She told Travis to make it loud and scary, but don't actually hurt anyone. Travis was a coward and an idiot, but he wasn't a complete monster. He drew the line at actual violence. He'd thought kicking in a door and screaming would terrify us into submission. He'd been catastrophically wrong. But his cowardice made him useful. His testimony would put Patricia away. Detective Chen took all of this, the physical evidence, the recordings, Travis's confession, the property records, everything to the district attorney's office that same afternoon. By 5 p.m. on October 23rd, less than 15 hours after Travis had kicked in our door, a warrant was issued for Patricia Delgado's arrest. They picked her up at the community center on Tuesday, October 24th, in the middle of her regular board meeting. According to Sophia, who was there, Patricia's face went from smug to shocked to absolutely terrified in about 5 seconds when 3 deputies walked through the door. She tried to argue. She tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just enforcing HOA rules. But when Detective Chen played the audio recording of her admitting that the patrol was hers to control, naming Carl and Sophia as deliberate targets, acknowledging that the harassment was designed to force sales to her company, when she heard her own voice explaining her entire criminal scheme, she went silent. Patricia Delgado was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit home invasion, conspiracy to commit extortion, fraud, filing false police reports, and about 6 other felonies. Her lawyer tried to get her bail, arguing she wasn't a flight risk. But the DA pointed out that she had access to substantial funds from her real estate scheme, had already shown a pattern of intimidation and illegal behavior, and represented a continued threat to witnesses. The judge agreed and denied bail. Patricia Delgado sat in Riverside County Jail for 3 months awaiting trial. No more HOA board meetings, no more intimidation, no more power. During those 3 months, Desert Vista Estates went through a revolution. The HOA board that had rubber-stamped Patricia's every decision resigned en masse within a week of her arrest. An emergency election was held in early November, and this time 278 out of 287 homes voted. Carl Brennan was elected president in a landslide. I was elected treasurer. Sophia became secretary. Carl's first official act as president was to void every single fine Patricia had ever issued during her tenure and refund all money collected, which came out to nearly $47,000. The HOA's insurance had to cover most of it. His second act was to dissolve the night patrol and ban any future security measures not directly approved by a full community vote. His third act was to publicly apologize to every family Patricia had harassed. The trial, when it finally happened in January 2025, was less a trial and more a formality. Travis testified against Patricia in exchange for a reduced sentence. Instead of 10 years, he'd do 3 years with possibility of parole after 18 months. 12 neighbors testified about the harassment campaign. Michelle's video of the door kicking played on a courtroom screen on a loop while jurors watched with expressions ranging from shock to disgust to anger. Patricia's lawyer, a slick guy in an expensive suit, tried to argue she was just an overzealous HOA president enforcing bylaws, that she couldn't be held responsible for Travis's violent actions. The DA demolished that argument in about 15 minutes. She showed the property sales records 3 houses bought cheap by Patricia's LLC within weeks of intensive harassment campaigns. She played the audio recording of Patricia explaining her scheme in her own words. She showed Travis's handwritten target list with Patricia's signature at the bottom. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. They came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. The sentencing came 2 weeks later, February 3rd, 2025. I was there in the courtroom, sitting next to Michelle in the gallery. Patricia sat at the defense table looking smaller than ever in an orange jumpsuit. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60 seconds named Judge Rebecca Vance, who'd seen plenty of con artists and had no patience for them. "Miss Delgado," Judge Vance said, looking down at Patricia from the bench, "you used your position of authority in your community to prey on your neighbors. You terrorized families in their own homes. You sent an armed man to break down doors in the middle of the night. You did all of this for money, for profit. This court finds your actions reprehensible." Patricia Delgado got 7 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 4 years. Desert Property Holdings LLC was dissolved by court order, and all assets were seized to pay restitution to victims. Patricia was ordered to pay $340,000 in fines and restitution, essentially. Every dollar she'd made from the scheme, plus penalties, plus money to repair our door, plus compensation for emotional distress. And perhaps most satisfying to me personally, she was permanently banned from ever serving in any HOA, community board, or homeowners organization in the state of California for the rest of her life. Travis got 3 years. He'd be out in 18 months with good behavior. When Patricia was led out of the courtroom in shackles by 2 bailiffs, she looked at me. Just for a moment, our eyes met. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I didn't say anything. I just looked back at her calmly, evenly, letting her know, you brought this on yourself. You could have just let people live in peace, but you couldn't resist. Your greed and your ego destroyed you. She looked away first. The aftermath was quieter than the war. Our neighborhood slowly returned to normal, the real normal, not Patricia's manufactured version of order and control. The constant fines stopped. The late-night patrols vanished. People started leaving their trash cans out an extra day without fear. Sophia's kids played basketball in the driveway until 9 p.m. without anyone calling it a noise violation. Carl's weathered mailbox post remained weathered and perfectly acceptable to everyone. We had a contractor come out and replace our front door. He did a great job. New mahogany door, new frame, reinforced with a steel strike plate that could actually withstand a battering ram if it ever came to that again. Cost about $2,800, which Patricia's restitution fund had to cover. I told him to leave the bullet holes in the floor, though. Michelle thought I was crazy, but I wanted them there visible reminders of the night we'd stood our ground. He sanded them smooth so no one would get splinters, filled them with clear epoxy so they wouldn't collect dirt, but left them visible. They're still there, probably always will be. Derek went back to Fort Bragg after his leave ended in early November. Before he left, he stood in the foyer and looked down at those 2 bullet holes in our floor. You know, he said, his voice quiet and thoughtful, in 12 years of combat, I've fired my weapon in anger dozens of times. Those 2 shots might be the most important rounds I ever fired. You saved us, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you, son. Anytime, Dad. Literally anytime. Anyone ever threatens you or Mom again, I'll be on the next plane. Carl Brennan's first major act as the new HOA president was to organize a neighborhood barbecue. It was held on a Sunday afternoon in February 2025, about 2 weeks after Patricia's sentencing, and nearly every household showed up. There were no rules about what food to bring, no regulations about where people could park, no fines for letting your kids run around and scream and play like kids should. It was just neighbors being neighbors. Sophia Martinez brought her kids, who immediately joined about 15 other children in an impromptu soccer game in the community park. Carl manned the grill, flipping burgers, his weathered mailbox post now a symbol of resistance and survival rather than shame. Michelle and I sat at a picnic table with our friends, real friends now, not just people who lived on the same street. You ever think about what would have happened if Derek hadn't been home? Michelle asked me quietly, watching the kids play. I'd thought about it a lot, actually, more than I wanted to admit. Travis would have burst in, screamed at us, probably roughed me up some, I said. Put his hands on me, pushed me around, made us feel helpless and terrified. We wouldn't have had any way to fight back. I'm 61 years old, and I haven't been in a physical fight since high school. We would have been too scared to do anything but comply. We probably would have taken Patricia's lowball offer, sold the house for $60,000 less than it was worth, and left. She would have won, and she would have kept doing it to other families. But Derek was home, Michelle said firmly, and she didn't win. No, she didn't. Because sometimes the difference between tyranny and freedom is just one person who refuses to back down. One person with the training, the courage, and the absolute clarity of purpose to say, not in my house, not to my family. The local news did a story about the case. It ran on the NBC affiliate out of L.A. The headline read, HOA president sentenced to 7 years for home invasion scheme. They showed footage of Patricia being led into court in handcuffs. They showed our house, the new door, the tidy front yard, the Buddha statue still sitting proudly among the cacti. They interviewed Carl and Sophia and me about what had happened and how we'd fought back. The reporter asked me what advice I'd give to other people dealing with abusive HOAs. Document everything, I said. Every notice, every fine, every conversation. Keep records. Talk to your neighbors. You're probably not the only one being targeted. And if something seems illegal, trust your instincts. It probably is. The story went viral locally. Within 2 weeks, we started getting emails from people in other planned communities across Southern California, people dealing with similar problems. 3 other HOA presidents were investigated. 2 were indicted. Our case became a template for how to fight back. As for Michelle and me, we still live in the same house. We're still here, in our piece of Desert Vista Estates, with our cactus garden and our Buddha statue and our bullet-scarred floor and our reinforced door. We're here because this is home, and nobody, not Patricia Delgado, not any petty tyrant with a clipboard and a tiny amount of power gets to take that away from us. Derek came home on leave again last month in early October 2025, almost exactly a year after that terrible night. We had dinner on the back patio, grilled steaks, Michelle's famous potato salad, cold beer. He asked about the neighborhood, about how things were going. I told him it was quiet, genuinely, peacefully quiet. The kind of quiet you can only really appreciate after you've fought for it. Good, he said, smiling that rare smile he got sometimes when he was home and relaxed. That's exactly what it should be. That night, after Derek went to bed, Michelle and I sat on the front porch. It was 2:47 a.m., exactly the time Travis Whitmore had kicked in our door 1 year earlier. We'd stayed up on purpose, wanting to mark the moment. The street was silent. No fake patrols, no intimidation, no fear, just peace. You know what the best part is? I asked Michelle. What's that? My Buddha statue is still sitting right there in the front yard, I said, gesturing to the cactus garden. Non-compliant, unapproved, aesthetically inconsistent with community standards, and it's going to stay there forever. She laughed, the sound carrying across our quiet neighborhood. You're a troublemaker, Raymond Torres. No, I said. I'm just a man who knows what peace costs, and I know how to pay it. The quiet returned to Desert Vista. Estates earned, not given, fought for, and won. And in that quiet, we learned the most important lesson. The most dangerous thing to a bully isn't violence, or rage, or even the law. It's simple, stubborn, documented resistance. It's neighbors standing together instead of cowering separately. It's one Army Ranger with perfect trigger discipline. It's a wife with a recording device who knows how to build a case. It's an old electrician with a folder full of proof. It's people who refuse to be afraid. Patricia Delgado thought she could rule through fear and intimidation. She thought her fake authority and her nephew's fake uniform gave her real power. She thought wrong. Fear only works if people let it work. The moment we decided we were done being afraid, her entire empire of petty tyranny, her fines and her threats, and her night patrol and her property scheme crumbled into nothing. And all it cost us was one front door and 2 bullet holes in the floor. A small price to pay for freedom.